Hey guys, it's Julie from Calm Belly Kitchen, and today I'm going to give you my top 5 tips for FODMAP reintroduction. Alright, if you're new to me, I am a health coach and I help women with IBS. That's my dog walking behind me. I help women with IBS reintroduce FODMAPs so they can be free to eat without stress and anxiety. And today I have an extra special freebie for you to help with the reintroduction phase. So it's a tracker to track your test food and your symptoms to plan out your reintroduction process. And it also includes a checklist with the 5 tips I'm giving you today, as well as a whole bunch more helpful tips that I use with my coaching clients and in my group programs. All right, so click that Learn More button below the video, or click in the post copy above the video to get the link to grab that tracker and checklist for the reintroduction phase. Okay, let's get into the 5 top tips for reintroduction. Okay, so number 1 is that you want to test foods that are only part of one FODMAP category. So you'll be testing all 9 FODMAP categories, and there are a lot of options for test foods within each category. So what you'll do is go through the Monash app. That's how I recommend you determine your test foods, and you just check to make sure the foods you're going to test are only part of one category. So for example, you could test honey for fructose. So honey is only contains fructose as the only FODMAP, so that makes it a really good test food. Now, apples contain both fructose and polyols, so they wouldn't be a good test food for either one, because how would you know which one you're sensitive to, right? So that's the first tip. Test foods that are only part of one FODMAP category. All right, I'm pulling up my notes because I do not want to forget any of these good tips. Okay, number 2. Continue to eat a low FODMAP diet throughout the reintroduction process. This is probably the most important tip I'm going to give you today, so I'll even repeat it. Maintain a low FODMAP diet throughout your reintroduction process. Now, this doesn't mean you can't take a break, and I'll talk about that later, but it's important because you want to make sure that you're getting the most accurate, clear results about your FODMAP tolerance levels as you go through this FODMAP testing with each category. So you want to make sure the rest of your diet is really low and really helps you maintain your symptoms, so that if you do have symptoms, you'll likely know that it's from the test food and not from your lunch yesterday. All right, so that's number 2. Tip number 3 for FODMAP reintroduction is decide on a method for tracking your food and your symptoms. Okay, so what I'm talking about here is a food journal, and that's basically a mandatory thing in the elimination phase, but it's optional in the reintroduction phase. So the point is, you want to decide if you're going to track all of your food, and this can be really helpful just to keep you focused on maintaining that low FODMAP diet, like I said for tip number 2. So it's really great for that, but it's not completely necessary. If you're very comfortable with eating your low FODMAP diet and you have your go-to meals and you know the food that works for you, it's not necessary that you record everything you eat. But the one thing that everyone has to record in the reintroduction phase is your test foods and your symptoms. So you want to write down the date, how much, the portion size of each test food, any symptoms, and when those symptoms showed up, how strong those symptoms were. So you just want to keep track of all of that so you can go back and look at all of this data you've collected and create your unique lifetime eating style going forward based on all these results from your FODMAP tolerance testing. All right, so that's what the FODMAP test food tracker comes in handy for. So that free download I have for you is perfect. It's a PDF that you can actually fill in on your computer to track your test foods and your symptoms. So definitely grab that. Okay, tip number 4 for FODMAP reintroduction. Wait at least 24 to 48 hours before moving on to your next test food. So you're going through 9 of these test foods, right? And between them, you always want to make sure you take a good break. So the reason is that symptoms can pop up to 48 hours after eating a high FODMAP food. I think the typical, if you want to know the average amount of time, it's 24 hours. Some people it's shorter, some people it can be up to 48 hours. So you just want to make sure that any lingering symptoms or symptoms that might pop up are gone before you start that new test food, that new category, so that, again, you're just getting those really, really crystal clear results, and all of this effort you're putting in pays off in the end. That's definitely what we all want. Okay, so tip number 5, we're already at tip 5. Make the testing process flexible. All right, here's what I mean by that. This is where taking breaks comes in, and I put a huge emphasis and give strategies and tips for this in all my coaching programs, because the FODMAP testing process needs to be practical and flexible and just doable in your real life, right? Or else there's the danger that you won't finish it, or that you might not even start it, which I see happen a lot because it is so intimidating. But if you know that it can be flexible and you can take breaks, it makes it so much more manageable. So for example, you might just pause your testing for a vacation or for a holiday. So you might take a week off over the Christmas holiday. Another important way to make it flexible is to make it fit around your job or any other commitments you have, regularly in your life. So, for example, I had a client in my program who had a really stressful 9-to-5 job, and she would time her testing so that if she was testing a larger portion of one of these high FODMAP foods, she'd do it on a Thursday or Friday. So if she had any symptoms, they would happen over the weekend, and she just wouldn't have to make her work week even more stressful than it already was. So you can absolutely kind of tweak your timeline and your testing and take longer breaks to make it all really, really fit your life. Okay, so let me go back over the tips one more time. The top 5 tips for FODMAP reintroduction. Number 1, let's see if I can remember these without looking at my notes. Number 1 is to choose test foods that are part of only one FODMAP category. Number 2, okay, I can't do it. Number 2 is to continue to eat a low FODMAP diet throughout your reintroduction process. And you can put that on pause. If it's Christmas and you want to indulge in a few, a moderate amount of some of those like cookies and all those holiday foods, that's fine. You can take that break in your testing, and hopefully you can maintain your symptom control because you want to feel good. But while you're testing, maintain that low FODMAP diet. And when you learn the high FODMAP categories that you do tolerate, don't bring them back into your diet permanently until you're finished with all your testing. So low FODMAP throughout the process. All right, number 3 is to decide on a method for tracking your food and or your test foods and your symptoms. So are you going to track everything in a spreadsheet or an app like MyFitnessPal or the My Symptoms app? Those are good ones. Or are you just going to use the free tracker and track your test foods and symptoms? Either way is good, but pick one and stick to it. All right, tip 4 is to wait at least 24 to 48 hours between testing the different foods that you're going to do throughout this process. And that's just to make sure that any lingering symptoms or any slow to happen symptoms are not going to muddle your results. And then tip number 5 is to make the testing process flexible because it's so important that it fits around your life and it's a manageable process. Okay, so if you want to get started with the FODMAP reintroduction phase, click the button, click the link in the post copy above the video and grab that free tracker. The checklist that's in there includes all of these tips as well as a whole bunch more. It kind of lays out the tips for preparing and then going through this process, the important things that you need to remember. And these are the things that I've figured out and developed through working with dozens and dozens of clients through this process. So definitely grab that. All right, so for any live viewers here, we are live on Facebook right now. I want to see if you guys have any questions. Where is my Facebook? I have so many windows open on my computer. Do you guys do that where you have like 10 tabs and then, 6 different applications? It's not healthy. Okay. All right. Any questions about any of the stuff that I covered today or FODMAP stuff in general? So I'm here for you. Calm Belly TV is my weekly-ish show to kind of cover a topic related to the FODMAP diet and then take any questions that you have. So you have a chance to get your questions answered in real time by a real person. Brandy said, great tips, thanks. Cool, thank you. I'm glad that was helpful, Brandy. And thanks for joining me live. And if you are watching the replay, leave your questions below. Feel free to tag me so I don't miss it as the comments kind of start to flow in. But yeah, tag me and let me know where you are in this process. And if you're ramping up to start the reintroduction phase, tell me how it's going and tell me which tip you found most helpful. All right. I think that is it for this week's Calm Belly TV. Thank you so much for joining me. Grab the free tracker and checklist. It is super helpful and just motivating. It asks you to set your start date for the reintroduction process, so it can be really motivating to actually have it on the calendar. All right, guys, I will talk to you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.